In this session, we're going to talk all about how to create a basic eye look. This will be a two-shade eye look, but will hopefully allow you to learn how to place eyeshadow and how to blend eyeshadow. This is a method used for beginners to keep it as simple as possible. You're going to need a minimum of 3 eyeshadow brushes. One large, one small, and one to blend with. These all need to be real hair because if they're synthetic, the colour will blend back off much quicker and it will give you less control with your product. One of the first things you may notice is that you may already have a lovely eyeshadow palette, but when you put the colour onto the eyelids, it never really looks like it does in the palette. This is because the first thing you need to do is prime the eyes. If you imagine a brown piece of paper and a white piece of paper, and you drew on both with a red pen, the white piece of paper is going to look more visible and show off the red colour much better than the brown piece of paper. It's going to be the same with your eyes. The lighter the tone is and the more neutral the tone is and more even, the better the colour is going to show up. One of the first things you might notice is that you already have a lovely eyeshadow palette that has some lovely colours in, but you never really see it look like that when you put it on. This is probably because the first thing you need to do is prime the eyes. If you imagine a white piece of paper and a brown piece of paper, and you draw on both with a red pen, the colour is going to show up best on the white piece of paper. It's the same for your eyes. The colour is going to pay off if you neutralise, prime them with a light colour and make them look really even. For some of us, we may also struggle with the eyeshadow staying on and in place. This will help for it to last, as it will provide a barrier between the skin and the colour. So here, just to show you, you can see the difference. This is putting the eyeshadow straight onto the skin, and here I've popped the eyeshadow onto the primer. You can see it's exactly the same colour, believe it or not, but you can see how much more vibrant and how much more colour payoff you get when you pop the colour onto a primer. There are lots of different types of eye primer out there, but I suggest that you start with something that has a light tone to it, rather than one that's transparent like this. So this one's the transparent one, and usually they go on and they're quite see-through. And this one, you can see, has a tone to it. That way your colour will pay off much better as well as stay put. Better still than buying a primer, use your concealer. As long as it's 2 shades lighter than your skin tone, it will show the colour off even better, and it saves you having to get another product. Take the concealer or the primer that you've got onto the back of the hand and use your concealer brush like we used in the conceal section. Pat it into the concealer, use the flat of the brush to its advantage, and then place the concealer, starting where the tear duct is, over the eyelid. Start along the lash line, because this is where we want to get most of the product, and then work your way up. The key here is to pat rather than rub, because you don't want it to become transparent. The only place that you can then start to rub is under your brows. So you're going to go right up to the brows, because you want it to look more transparent there. You don't want it to look really white or light coloured. Just like so. And then blend it out into the temple. And then here, you might just need to use your finger just to pat that through. So once you've done that, you can repeat it again and start on that lash line again. And work your way up. Now you can start to use colour. The fundamentals of a two-toned eye look is to have a contrast between light and dark colours, so that they don't merge and blend into one. The idea is that you use matte and shimmer against each other to have a contrasting finish, like this. So you can see here, these 2 outer layers of eyeshadow are matte, one light, one dark, and these 2 inner ones are shimmery, one light, one dark. We're going to use a contrast of matte with shimmer, light with dark. The other thing to consider is the quality of the eyeshadow. If you try it on the back of your hand and it looks pretty transparent, then you're going to have to work much harder and add more layers to get the colour to pay off, as opposed to using a better quality eyeshadow. Again, you don't have to go wild on the spending. The best way to check, like I said though, is on the back of the hand. I'm now going to show you what to do. For this, when you're looking in the mirror, you will need to position your head back and look down towards the mirror so that your eyelid is quite smooth and there's no creases, so that it makes it easiest to apply. So the first stage is to apply the lightest colour first. You're going to need to take the largest brush, and this one's angled, which is a bonus, but if it's not angled, that's fine, but it's angled so that you can get it right into the socket and into the tear duct. We pop it into the product, pat it in, and then tap off the excess. Do that a couple of times so we've got plenty of product on there. We then pat it over the eyelid onto the lash line and along the lash line. And you can pretty much see that colour already. We're then almost like a rainbow layering it up to the socket line. If you open your eye for me, Jenna, you can see the socket line and look down again. It's where the eye has a line that dips in behind the eyeball. You're then going to repeat that again. Maybe you might repeat this step now, dependent on the quality of your eyeshadow, maybe once, maybe twice, maybe up to 3 times, dependent. So I'm going to repeat it again. And if you're not sure if you can see the colour, just compare it to your other eye. See if you can see a difference. The last bit, once you've applied the light colour, is just to blend it through. Now, most of you will have popped it up to the socket line, but you don't want a defined line. So just with the blending brush that's a bit fluffier and longer, you're just going to put half of the brush onto the product, half of the brush off onto the skin, and just literally blend through. And that's just going to let any excess, if there's too much, dissipate into the skin. So half of the brush on the product, half of the brush off, and note I'm only going from the tear duct to the corner of the eye, no further down. The next step is we're going to apply the dark colour in the corner. For this, we're going to take the smallest brush for the darkest colour so that we don't make too much of a mess. We're going to pop it into the product, put it in straight down, and then I'm going to tap off any excess like so, because I don't want to get crumbs of the eyeshadow all down the cheeks. Where you start with this one is, if you can see along the lash line, half of your brush is going to be on the lash line, but instead of keeping it straight along, which will then make the eye appear like it's drooping downwards, we're going to lift it by 45 degrees, half on the lash line, into the socket, into the corner of the socket, just there. And by doing that, that's going to lift the eye and point it towards the end of the brow. And just open for me, Jenna, so you can see. Look down again. Then we're going to create a V shape and prod the product into the socket line just there. So we've created a little V shape, like so. We're then going to apply more product just into that V section and make the V appear bigger. At this point you might need to take a little bit more product, and again do exactly the same. Tap off the excess, pop it along the lash line and into the socket line in a V shape, like so. Once you've started to create that and you've taken that V shape a third of the way across, you can then start to press the product in the corner, making almost like a C shape at this side, like so. At this point, it should look quite messy because you're going to blend next. For this, you'll need to take your blending brush with the long fibres, and you will also need a tissue to hand. You're going to look down again, and half of your brush will be on the product, half of it will be off, and you will literally take the brush no further than the corner of the eye because you don't want to drag the product downwards, and you're going to brush inwards, sweeping a few times and then stopping to have a look, and then repeat, sweeping a few times, then stopping to have a look. At this point, you'll need to wipe your brush on the tissue. This is really important because if you just continue to blend, you will just move the product on the brush further around the eye socket. Repeat again until you can see that the blending has softened the look, like so. Now at this point, the top part is starting to look much more blended, but this section here doesn't. So for that, we're going to apply a similar principle, but more circular, and just literally circulate the brush gently until it looks blended, like so. Now we're going to define the eyes by using kohl pencil on the bottom waterline to frame this whole section. So literally you'll need to look up when you're applying this, unless it doesn't bother you at all. Start on the waterline and work your way all the way across to right up into the corner, and that's just going to frame the eye for you. And then to finish that off, take the small brush that you had with the excess of the product that you had on it. You don't need to get any more product. Look up for me, Jenna. And literally start at the corner of the eye and work your way underneath, like so. And then take your blender and just blend it through outwards, like so. And what that will do is finish the eye look off and create a section here, rather than letting your eye look just disappear into the rest of your face. It will frame the eye. The last thing to do if you want to widen this eye section is to highlight right where the tear duct is, and that will create a focal point and open this section up. So take a narrow brush, almost looks like a pencil really, something really narrow or very small, so that you can place the eyeshadow right on that tear duct there, like so, and that will just open the eye section up. The last thing that you're going to want to apply is your mascara, just to finish the entire look off. And for this, you can use any mascara, whatever you feel comfortable with or enjoy using, but the narrower the brush, like this one or this one, the easier it's going to be to apply if you struggle with smudging. So my suggestion is to ensure that you apply mascara on the top lashes, on the underneath, and on the bottom. Cut for me. In summary, if you have a concealer already in your makeup bag, you could use that to prime your eyes with. If not, then it's a great time to get a concealer that is 2 shades lighter so that you can use it to prime and also use it to conceal to highlight the face with, as shown in the concealing session. You'll be more likely to have an eyeshadow or an eyeshadow palette. So just try to find 2 shades, one that's light, one that's dark, and ideally one that's shimmer and one that's matte to have a contrast in finish. If you are shopping for eyeshadows, you can test the quality of the product and the colour that you're going to get paid off on the back of the hand. The more transparent, the less colour payoff you will get. And if you do already have something that's quite transparent, you're going to need to repeat the colour application. The key though is to have the correct brushes. You do need a large brush for the lightest colour, a small brush for the darkest colour, and then a blending brush to ensure that the look is completely blended.